Welcome to Reality After Show. Not with Jonny Fairplay. Unfortunately, he got his nose busted by some freshly manscaped balls. So he will not be with us for part 2 of The Challenge, Ride or Dies, episode 18, part 2 of the final. It's your host, Alex Trias, always joined by Dan Montchal. Dan, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Wish this episode would have been a little bit better, but we're getting there.
Yeah, so honestly, let's talk about it, folks. This will actually be a shorter podcast because we all watched the episode, or if you didn't watch the episode, you know what? You're in the right place to talk about it because it was 1 hour of nothing. It was just stations. It was just stations. No one went home. No one was sent home by injury. It was just another full day of the final.
Yeah, it was I understand they have 100 hours. This is the longest final, so they want to show as much of it as they can. And plus, if they can stretch it out to 25 episodes, they're going to find a way to do it. But it just seemed like there wasn't a whole lot going on, especially as we get into it, that there isn't that big of a benefit to leading after 1 day, 2 days. It's not what you would think.
Mm-hmm. So let's actually talk about it. So we're 2 episodes into this final format, which is very different from the other finals that we have watched on this show. The main shows usually are 2 days. Sometimes they're even just a day. Still would have stations, but we've seen in All Stars where they would do the stations, but the stations had points to it, and you had that type of thing to weigh onto it. You've had the old school finals where it was just, here's a bunch of stations, you're just gonna keep going, sleep. You get the delayed runtime advantage up the mountain, and that's how it ends on the second day. Then you have this one where it's not necessarily that you're doing stuff for 100 hours, but it's the challenge of this final. It's the fact that it's 100 hours and not so much the stuff that's in between.
Yeah, it is something that I'm hopeful for going into the finale, is that at this point, because we're almost 3 days into it,
Yep.
is that I think that you're going to see a lot more of that wear and tear, some people getting at their breaking points. And I do expect that part 3 is going to be a lot better, especially than last night. But it was just that filler episode. This is all that tonight seemed like there wasn't really a lot that we got out of it outside of maybe a handful of talking points.
Yeah, so we do finish this episode. The last timestamp we get is in the morning when the helicopter's coming in, that they are 63 hours in, 39 hours left, one sole survivor. But let's go into this round. So we leave off part 1 with Jordan and Anissa just arriving to the slingshot station, where they meet Horacio, who they realize Horacio and Olivia are now pulled from the game because of Olivia's injuries. The other 2 teams, we catch up with them briefly, are just trying to get to that next station. They have no clue where the other teams are, but all they know is their specific placement. So Tori and Devin are trying to maintain a lead. Bananas and Nani are trying to catch up as quick as they can, because they know that overall, we hear it throughout the episode, they think if it just comes down to running, injuries aside, they can outpace Tori and Devin if they can catch up to them. And then you just have Jordan and Nisa, who are just like, let's just get through the task. They get through the slingshot pretty quickly, or through the miracles of editing, they get through it pretty quickly, and now they are also running to the next station. I don't know about you, because obviously since episode 1, I've been saying this is Tori and Devin's coronation season. They're going to be crowned the champions. It's very ham-fisted in this episode about why they are the best ride or dies, and about communication. I'm pretty sure they recycled Devin's confessional about communication being key 5 times in this episode. And I give them their credit of, I do believe in this specific final, even with all teams healthy, they are the best pair for this type of final. I do believe, though, because we do see later on that we hear about Nani's knee, not much mentioned of it, but they made a point of showing it. Like, does it ultimately end up where Nani and Bananas could have won if Nani didn't tweak her leg?
I think it really comes down to, unfortunately, at this point, we don't know what is gonna happen on, episode 3. Is it gonna come down to it's a puzzle at the end? Is it gonna come down to an all-out sprint? That it's potentially, it could be a reason why, but as much as we've been forced, over the past few episodes that, hey, this is Tori and Devin, they're working best together, it still just shows that you can't count the old man out. He's right there the whole time. Like, while they're running, you can tell that he's the one that's slowing down a little bit so Nani can keep up. And I'm sure some of that is with her knee, but old man still got gas.
Old man still got gas, and I will give Nani her credit, even with the knee injury. She seems to be picking up the pace where she was, because normally the issue with her wasn't always the running part of it. I know she used to smoke. I don't know if she still smokes now, but I know last season in particular, like a big highlight was that she was sort of not leading the pack. Like, she was sort of falling behind when it came to her running. So I give her credit. I think she's improved vastly in between seasons. And I think this episode in particular, we got to see not the peak, but definitely the upside of Bananas and Nani as a duo. Like, they may not communicate well, but they understand the game, and they understand for certain situations where, like, as soon as they get to that puzzle before they can sleep, they know they didn't get first. It does not matter to them if they get second or third when the other team is Anissa and Jordan. But
what I would also really be interested in seeing, and this is more going to come down to Nani, is we've seen in these finals before that one of the great things about Bananas, why he's won 7 times and he's so good at this, is that while most people, outside of your Jordans, your CTs, they wear down as the final goes, he's the epitome of, he gets stronger as the final goes. And if Nani can keep doing that with him, that's a dangerous team.
absolutely. Like, that was the one big quality of Jonny. And like, once he figured out the secret to how to go through a challenge season to prep yourself for a final, if you get there, you're in very good physical condition to last in a final. Like, Jordan, you never really see his fatigue just because the dude is probably the most athletic person, one of the most athletic people to come through the challenge. CT, like, I saw a picture the other last night from Alan Aguirre, like that dude on social media who posts all the fun. He's very good at what he does with covering the challenge. So if you don't know him, follow him on Twitter. He's very funny, but also very resourceful. And I use that for a lot of information that I forget sometimes. And he showed how in that World of the Wars 2 season, CT comes in out of shape. But because of how long the season goes, he loses like more than 20 pounds. And then you see what he looks like heading into the final. You're like, oh, damn. You literally see the change in him. Like, he's ready to go for that final now. He's going to go, and he's not going to stop. He's not going to wear down. He's there for it. And I just feel like that's a mentality thing. One of it's genetics. Some of these people have the gift of like just having very good metabolism, so that once you start working out, it just drops like that. But it's very interesting to see those type of things with these players. But let's get to the first station we have of this episode, and it's the swamp. We see that in the Australian final. I think we see the last couple of things that we saw in the Australian final in this episode. So we get the swamp, and you had to go into that swamp that looks like pea soup, toxic waste, whatever you want to believe it was. And you have to sort of guide through it to go get your puzzle pieces that are on like various sides of the swamp. Once you have all that, then it's a memory puzzle where there is a key, but the key is a good like run away. You have to solve it completely. It's colors, it's symbols. Symbols are different colors, all 4-sided pieces. Once you get all of it done, you can move on to the next station. So I don't mind that they're reusing some of the challenges, but like using it in a different way that they used in the dailies. I liked this one just because there is a key to it, so that if you were falling behind it, but if you figured out the pattern quickly, you could have made tremendous ground. And we see that with Anissa and Jordan ultimately.
Yeah, I do like that. It's something that it's what we're accustomed to in the final is it's just a lot of endurance. And so you're running back and forth. And it's kind of what you see. And I guess it's one of the small cracks that you see in Tori and Devin. And it's not big, but at one point, Devin gets frustrated and kind of yells at Tori. And she's like, hey, like, give me a second. And who knows if it's editing or if it worked out that way. But once they got back on the same page and she's kind of able to relax and think about it, she immediately picks up on the pattern, which like that's great for that team because you think, oh, if someone's going to do that, it's going to be Devin. Like, no, it's Tori here who figures it out.
That was a big surprise because like Tori would be the last, like she'd be the first person to tell you like puzzles aren't her strong suit, but to be able to recognize the pattern, like kudos to her. And I want to say it all comes down to for Devin was he's putting so much pressure on himself and on Tori to like get their first win finally. And they thought they had such a big lead just to see that Bananas and Nani are closer than what they thought they would be. And now they're both at the station. And now Jordan and Anissa are somehow managing to come through hobbled and all. And now they're going to be working on the puzzle. I think it just got into his head very briefly of like, oh crap, we're about to just waste all this lead we had.
Yeah, I can see that, especially because, with editing, say it over and over again, you never really know. But going back to the end of the first episode, not only did we see Tori and Devin get to the slingshot first, but they whizzed right through it, where you saw all of the shortcomings of like Nani and Bananas that it took them a long time to do. So going into this, you would think that they have a much larger lead going into this, the swamp event. And maybe that wasn't that case. Maybe there was another event that we missed, or maybe it was simply the fact, as you mentioned to earlier, that Nani and Bananas were tracking him down on that long run.
Yeah, and then this part of the episode is also where as Tori's figuring out the pattern and then Nani does find out the pattern, we are highlighting the injuries that people get on these finals. But more specifically, Anissa's ankle is still obviously it's a rolled ankle. It is a legitimate injury. As much as we make jokes about it, these past few episodes, it is a legitimate injury. Not easy to maneuver around. And we have Jordan, and I felt at this point in time, I thought Jordan's his words were motivating. Like it was him trying to upload. Like, you've been waiting 13 years for this. I wouldn't be asking you to do something I didn't think you could do. And then it cuts to a confessional from Anissa, like, this is not the type of motivation I need. I can't imagine being talked to this way. And like, as a viewer, I felt for myself, I'm like, this is very weird behavior here. Like, I don't understand what she's saying about this not being good motivation or not being like uplifting, because it's him trying to uplift her. And I get part of it is Jordan's way of like, dude, I'm walking backwards. If I did anything else, I'd be like walking towards you. And I get those side of things. But I felt like at this point, he was still trying to motivate and push her. But I felt like in her mind, I don't know if she, at that point in time, she felt checked out. I don't believe she ever actually intended on wanting to quit. But it almost was like she was letting herself shut down.
Yeah, I think like we'll get to the bad Jordan, but this year I agree with you. I don't think he was doing anything wrong. And what it brings me back to is, what is it that Anissa needs to be motivated? Like, what is her definition of good motivation? Because you see back a handful of episodes ago, she liked the drill sergeant. But if you're going back seasons, I mean, I go all the way back to Rivals 2. She was partners with Diem, rest in peace. And all Diem was doing that entire season was begging her to work out with her. Like, let's work out, let's run, let's get in shape. And it's how Diem was. Diem was never nasty about it. She was never mean. She was coming. She was asking, pleading. And Anissa refused to do so. So at this point, really, what is the motivation that's going to get Anissa going? Because I think we've seen pretty much all motivational tactics used towards Anissa, and we've never seen it really, oh, this is what I need. It's always, this isn't what I need right now.
You know what? we're going to stretch this podcast out anyway because there wasn't a lot much to talk about. Let's break down a little further here with Anissa, because I do have another like multi-layered question here for you about her. And one, it's like, does she like the storyline of her like just missing the final? Like, if only I was allowed to get to the final, I keep getting cut beforehand. Like, does she actually want to be in a final and potentially win a final? Because it goes into my second part of the question here is, we all know Jordan wasn't her original partner for this Ride or Die season. It was one of her like little best, like a best friend from back home. I in my mind, I just picture it's another version of Kenny. Like, does
Kenny too.
she legitimately want to try to get to a final and win a final, or is she here to hang out with her friends and get a get an appearance fee? Because if that's the case, you know what, like, hey, I ain't gonna question how you get your money. I will question having you on my screen if you're not there to actually, if you do get to the final, actually being able to compete or not.
So who knows exactly what it is. I'm more believing that she's likes that storyline of how many times she's been close, because when you keep getting cut that close to the end, it's the last elimination, the second last elimination, you can keep, that storyline of what if, be like, oh, if I just made it. But look at the facts. It's 13 years between finals, but let's go back 13 years to that last final. It was the duel 2. She came in third, and it wasn't really all that close. And that was in shape Anissa. Now, granted, she was going against a beast in Rachel, who ended up winning that season and beat everyone. But she finished a distant third. So there was never a point in time, anytime, where it was like, oh, if Anissa gets there, she's going to win. So I would think that she kind of likes that storyline, because she can keep saying, use more of the martyr approach of, oh, had I just made it, and, you never know what could have happened. And I think what we're seeing is, if she's going to make it, regardless of the turned ankle or not, she's not winning. It's not, those days are gone.
Right. And now I think it's more so like, I don't want to quit. Like, I want to finish finals. It was similar mentality in All Stars, which, that's the redacted history of, oh, it's been 13 years from a final. Well, actually, she was in one last year.
Yeah.
Got last out of 10 people. Big Easy finished before her, but like, they were still like working together at that point of like, we are gonna motivate each other to finish the final.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, not everyone's going to win. You know who one of my favorite people when I first started watching the challenge was? It was Devin Simone, like, who
Not
does
Tyree. Got it.
Yeah, not Tyree, no, but Devin, who, she does her work on the Challenge podcast now. Like, great for her. She should have been on that stuff from the beginning. She's great for that, meant for it. She's not meant to win a final, but she made sure she finished them when she did compete. And that was her goal. And you know what? When you follow that, and that's the story, her story was, I know I'm not winning, but I want to show that I can finish one. That's motivating. Yeah. That's like really cool. That's really good. You can get buy-in from the fans. Like, that's the story that she should be doing.
Her whole arc on, free agents was incredible, because it was simply, she knew she wasn't going to win, but she wasn't going to give up. She wasn't going to stop. And yeah, I think that was a much bigger story. Devin, her just not giving up, her perseverance was more impressive than Laurel winning that final for the females. It was, you walk away watching that finale and you're like, Devin was the star.
Yeah, Devin was star. Devin never complained as much as Zach did walking up a mountain. It's like, she buried a wig. She had to finish that final for the wig.
R.I.P. tomorrow.
I know, rip. And see, it's like, we remember that.
Yeah.
And we look at it positively. I feel like Anissa could have went that route, but instead, and you brought up the point, and I really believe it, she does want, I think she subconsciously wants to be the martyr. it's easy because maybe in that mindset, you believe you'll get more sympathy.
Mhm.
You believe you'll get more people being like, hey, but you tried. You tried hard. You did the best you could. It just didn't work out. You got screwed over. Like, allowing people to gas you back up.
Well, I
But
also
that,
think one of the big differences there is that Anissa has too much pride that she can't do that, because you hear her talk throughout all the, the past handful of seasons, and she still views and talks about herself as if she's a great. Where if you go to the opposite side of it, going back to Devin, she knew a lot of the time she's just like, I don't want to see an elimination. Like, I'm happy to be here. I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can, and I'm going to take advantage of every opportunity. And she was grateful and wanted to be there. And it's where she really shined, where Anissa has more of this everything should be handed to me mentality.
right. And we'll get back into this very quickly because let's just rush through what happens here. So, all the girls are on the teams are the ones who figure out the pattern for this memory puzzle. And Tori and Devin finish it quickly. They get to the next stage where before you can finish for the day, there's one more puzzle, and it's that like crazy 8 like chain link puzzle. And they actually finish it very quickly, where I thought was hilarious because you go with the TJ, it's like, this could take a while. And it's them be like, oh, like you briefly see them struggle, and then Tori's like, wait, maybe if you think of it from a different perspective, and immediately Devin's like, you know what? You're right.
I
And
think
when I
it's
look at
once
it this
again,
way, we finish.
it's once again that the two of them, they balance each other out very well.
It felt like, I know they weren't on the Are You the One season, but they've been on the challenge for so long that I forget that. I always believed in my head that they were on the same season together, where it's like, oh, like you're trying to math it out to figure out who all the pairs are. But then you get to the last, I was like, wait, take a step back here. You could sort of do a mix of both. And like, oh, we do it. And congrats, you all found your matches, you all win your money. I think that like mindset they both had makes it very easy for them to communicate. So the Daves win this day.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. So then it's Nani and Bananas. Nani figures it out. Bananas is like, just like, thank you, Nani, because he's always been a below average when it comes to puzzles. He just has those weird like idiot savant moments where suddenly he'll be good at a puzzle, like when he took out CT. Still crazy that happened, but
especially because it was 3.
Yeah, but they get to that crazy 8 puzzle, but they don't finish it before Jordan and Anissa. So it took them a long time, like probably like over an hour, because Jordan and Anissa says she found the pattern, but I think at this point Jordan's just like, it's starting to get to him. The hours are starting to get to him. He's more annoyed. He's more just like, I'm really carrying, in his mind, dead weight. So obviously she's wrong. There is no pattern. Why would there be a pattern to a puzzle? Go back and run. And then he runs back, sees that she's right, and they finish it. They get there, and both teams help Jordan and Nisa finish the puzzle and help Bananas and Nani, and we get a confession from Jordan. He's like, well, like, there is no benefit to either team hitting us with disadvantages if there are any moving forward. So by helping Bananas and Nani finish so that they can rest, maybe both sides continue to just point their guns at each other, and maybe me and Anissa squeak through. So at this point, you're like, okay, so Jordan's still good. He's like, we're still competing. We're still going to be going for it. And then it just takes this drastic turn where everyone's resting now. You're at the camp, and Anissa's getting her ankle taped up and looked at by a medic. And probably one of the most savage things on this season is Jordan just sitting down back to her, just goes, no wonder it's been 13 years.
Yeah, it's something that you can think, but you probably shouldn't say out loud.
Well, we all know Jordan, and he will always say what he thinks.
Yes, this is where, I mean, you can tell that the frustration, like, it's gotten the best of him. I'd feel like a Jordan defender, a Jordan apologist.
Yeah.
He was wrong here. I'm not going to defend that.
Yeah, and I feel like you sort of see that in the confessionals for like the next day, where they're like apologizing to each other, and Jordan's like, you know what, I will be good. And then we sort of get move like past this point, like we sort of get the mini final leg of Jordan, where he's goofier. He's like Bananas and Nani are passing. It's like, oh, tryhards, we're still gonna come at you. We're gonna get to you. He's like more nurturing, and I think that's ultimately what it's. I borderline say coddling when it comes to Anissa, when it comes to what she wants, but it's definitely nurturing at the very least, where it's like, I need you to be extremely positive with me. Like, you can be a hard ass with me, but you need it edged towards positivity and not drill sergeant.
And it's especially what she needed after, like, that day following the previous day. Like, if he came out and was yelling again, like, she could have completely shut down. And at this point, if you're not going to win and you have someone yelling at you like that, as much as, I'll defend Jordan and, put some blame on Anissa, that one I wouldn't really blame her for. So I think that they were able to reset, and it was a good thing for both of them.
So, and during this point, we have Tori, and mainly the comment is about them doing the puzzle, where Tori's like, there's nothing to do, so this is entertainment watching. Obviously, it's not entertainment seeing your best friend get yelled at by your ex-fiance, but
no.
Do you feel Tori did the right thing of letting that all happen and then going to Anissa and like the day after or whatever it was, the morning after, and like talking it out with Anissa as a friend there? Because I do personally take the conversation that Tori has with her about like, are you quitting? Like, what? Like, let me tell you how you like Jordan is. Like, I took that as her being genuine there.
I think where it is, I think a lot of it depends on the situation and the person. And just because she knows Jordan so well, as much as maybe she wanted to defend her at that point in time, look at Jordan's track record. It wasn't going to go well. It would have blown up into something way much worse had Tori jumped in. And it probably, if we didn't already cross the line, it was going to cross the line and possibly a point of no return. So I think that the fact that she knows both of these people so well, it was better off her just letting it play out and then trying to come in, and I'm sure she talked to both of them afterwards.
Most likely. And at this point, we're 50 hours in. We're at the camp, and like we constantly see people trying to dry off their clothes over the fire. But at the same time, you have to keep yourself properly groomed. We see Tori's hair looks fantastic for 2 days. But the other part that you need is to make sure you're freshly groomed. And we got the ad for that.
Support for Reality After Show is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. That's right, 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SURVIVOR at manscaped.com. If my math's correct, that's about 12 million balls.
The Performance Package 4.0 has arrived, and oh man, is it a game changer. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker, ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your goodies.
First off, the Lawnmower 4.0, this trimmer is the future of grooming, and dare I say, the greatest ball trimmer ever.
Their 4th generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to help reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 is waterproof and has a 4000K LED spotlight that you need for a more precise shave.
Now, I have a dark shower curtain in my bathroom, and I've been looking for the perfect way to shave in the dark, kinda. Guess what? I found it! 4000K LED! No longer a problem. I got perfectly smooth, clean balls thanks to the Lawnmower 4.0.
It's time to take care of yourself, so go to manscaped.com and get 20% off and free shipping with the code SURVIVOR. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code SURVIVOR. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Thanks for sticking with us through the ad break. And don't forget, for more exclusive Reality After Show coverage, visit realitypatron.com. That's reality, Patron.com.
Okay, so we are now 50 hours into TJ's 100-hour final. So another day. Once again, you're going to have some grueling stations. You want to finish first. And the advantage here is you get to run a little bit earlier than the other two teams. So, Dan, you were right. It was a horrible advantage.
Yeah, it's just at this point, a full day and a half worth of, or almost 2 days worth of checkpoints running. It amounts to a few minutes. It's just, I think my guess is maybe Tori and Devin would have assumed that it would have been greater than that. If not, maybe we would have seen more of Devin like he was on the stationary bike, where he's just like, hey, we don't need to kill ourselves here because it's not going to end up really making that much of a difference. Now, obviously, a head start is different than, oh, you get to lay down earlier, but still, I just don't like it. I'd rather see everything be timed and total up the times.
Yeah, I think this is always the big debate, because part of me is like, just let people constantly just be going, but you can't do that for a 100-hour file. Like on a normal file, it'd be like, just have them keep going, and the tier is fine in that regard. Because I think you should reward people that are doing better, and the people that aren't doing well need to work harder to get to the spot that the people that are doing better are doing. But you have to run to get to your sweet rides. You know, a good traders callback. You can check our traders coverage on anywhere that you follow and listen to our podcast on YouTube or on all social media platforms. But unfortunately, TJ had realized an important part's missing out of those cars. The motor.
I mean, at least the motor's not in there. That's at least going to make it a little easier to push.
I know, right? If anything, I'd say thank you. Thank you. It's a little easier to push, but we see that the three cars, one is directly on like the muddy road, and the other two are more so off on the grass. And we hear specifically from TJ as Devin and Tori are approaching first. Once you touch a car, it is yours. You touch it, you own it. And Devin makes sure Tori does not touch anything. They end up going with the car on the right. It looked like it was like fully on the grass. Looked like it would be the easiest one to push. Makes all the sense in the world. Bonanza and Nani get up there, and Bonanza's like, wait, Nani, don't touch anything. Let's listen to TJ. And TJ even says, like, you touch it, it's yours. And Nani, like, without thinking, touches the pink car that is on the road.
Stuck in the mud. And because I think had it just been 2 seconds later, Bananas would have said, oh, we're taking this one. But it was that quick that she put her hand on it. And it was just, your day got that much harder.
And you could see how much harder it was because it allowed Nisa and Jordan to get back and pretty much be like neck and neck with them through that stage. All three teams finished with roughly no issues at all on that station. And then like suddenly a full day has passed. We have missed several stations. We should assume. I know you said, Banana said on his podcast that was indeed the case, which, I mean, if you're a challenge viewer, the only thing you can say is duh. Like, you don't suddenly go from beginning of the day pushing a car and then suddenly it's nighttime. They would not make you run for 12 hours straight doing nothing but running.
Well, who wants to see other stations when we can get a 5-minute montage of vomit? Like,
I mean, it wasn't even a 5-minute montage of vomit. It was a 5-minute montage of let's see how much spaghetti that Nani can put into her stomach. And you know what? It's always the skinny girls. It is always the skinny girls that can somehow eat more than their body weight.
I mean, you see as they walk up to it, and it's, you know, I've not like I'm a big watcher of it, but 4th of July, I've seen some of, you know, the Nathan's hot dog eating contests, and they're fooling with it, dunking the bread in the water, making it easier. And you're like, okay, they're doing pretty well. But when it comes to the pasta, like, holy hell, I was not expecting that.
Yeah. So in this eating challenge, and this is the eating challenge I more prefer, is this is normal food, but we're going to give you an obscene amount of it, and you will like either force yourself to puke or you will just puke because it's just way too much. I personally could not make myself puke. It is just something I cannot do. I will not ever do it. So I will have been in like, I don't know whose boat. Probably Nani's. Nani didn't seem to be vomiting at all. Outside of it was only triggered when she literally could not put any more into her body. Uh,
And I also think they went about it the right way because, I mean, if you think we've all had that larger meal that we ate too quickly or overate, and they talk about it too that, oh, Tori and Devin, they're over there using forks while they're just handfuls going it down. And it's the right way to go about it, not only because the time, but you're able to trick your body for a little bit longer the faster you eat it because it takes a while for it to catch up.
Right. Like it takes your body to some time to realize that you're full. And a lot of people suffer from that, like from eating too quickly, their dinners, and like, oh, I can have seconds. I'm still starving. And then you have those seconds in 10 minutes. And you're like, oh God, I should not have had that.
Mistakes were made.
And like Bananas like hates the eating stuff. He hates it, but he's like, I'm gonna pretend like I'm having the time of my life just to like really get under the skin of these other two teams that are just like using their forks and twirling around a little bit of spaghetti. Also very interesting here, just a little side note here. This is a challenge where you can sit down, and I grant they are right. It's probably easier to eat all this standing. Anise has a bum ankle and decides to stand throughout all of it.
I think it is something with like the ankle though, that especially if they did just come off a lot of running, that like it's always going to be the hardest, at the beginning. So I think there would be something to it of if they're not sure what's coming next, stay standing, keep it moving that way. Because if she were to sit down and then they'd have to run, it would get very stiff and it'd be painful.
Yeah. So like, honestly, if there was no bread and it was just like that large portion of pasta, like I feel like a lot of people should overall be fine with it because you can eat a lot of that. The bread, obviously, and them having to eat the bread first is obviously to make you full, because it's just carbs and starches. It's like it's gonna expand in your stomach. I love that. Like Devin gets there first. He's like, "Oh, there's a bug in here," and TJ just goes, "Hey, free protein. It's free protein."
And I think this was TJ's part of it because he was having an awesome time watching these people suffer.
He more specifically, he was having the time of his life watching Bananas and Nani eating like their toddlers, and the ending of it of Nani like trying to get that last mouthful it actually in, and Johnny goes, "Do you want to like baby bird it to me and I'll fish it?" And for a brief moment, she's just in his over. She's like, "Oh, he means it." But you know what? Maybe he should have, because instead, she somehow manages to vomit into his pocket.
Yeah, that one was bad. Like, obviously you never want to have that happen, but I feel like Banana should have seen that coming. Like, take a few extra steps back up because she's housed that pasta. She's gonna burst.
But they finish it. It's hilarious. They're like, we're done. And TJ goes, "You know what? I'm so proud of you guys for being able to finish all of your dinner. And I would be remiss to not give you dessert. So here's 2 things of chocolate ice cream. But don't worry, Tori. It's vegan."
And that's like when you're full to eat that much sugar.
Oh my God. Not even, just you are full. Here is ice cream.
I mean, you'll give it to Nani, and then it was Tori and Devin that copied it. They were smart of mashing it up, just make it more of a liquid.
Yeah, well, Tori and Devin eventually just like they got it so like enough where they could put it into their water glasses and then drink it. Like essentially, it was like chocolate milk at that point. I love Nani's face though after finishing the ice cream. Like just like food just smeared all over her. She literally looks like she's a toddler who just like ate their like spaghetti with meat sauce, and it's just red all over their face.
And as much as it isn't, it's pointed out that Tori and Devin have the best communication, like they're doing really well. You have the small snippets of Jordan and Anissa where when Jordan's throwing up, Anissa's pushing more of the pasta to his side. But I think it shows that, yes, it's maybe a bit dysfunctional, not how everyone should work, but it shows how great Nani and Bananas are, because you see him take some of the extra ice cream being like, Nani, you killed this challenge. Like, I may feel like death, but this is up to me to carry some of this load here because of how awesome you did.
And he doesn't even like sweets.
No.
And honestly, you look at that body, and I can understand why you don't like sweets. But they finished in first place for the night. Devin and Tori get second. Jordan needs to get third. They sleep it off. They wake up 61 hours in now. And maybe I missed some time. I really don't care at this point. 63 hours in now. Helicopter is coming in. It's the next day. They're going into the helicopter. You see that the helicopter seems to be used in one of the stations. And that's where we get like next time on. And it looks like there's this big contraption like arena. Looks like some of the looks like some. I don't think it's the zone, but there's definitely some of the past eliminations in there. We don't know how they're being used. We don't know if there's actually an elimination. We don't know if they're just also stations. But somehow all this is going to get to probably the middle of that area, and like you get up that like little platform and you win. I still have my money on Tori and Devin, because their story this episode was we had the lead this whole time, and now suddenly the hard part's maintaining it, and you end the episode with you not maintaining it. So now it's them overcoming the brief disadvantage of not being in first place for a couple hours before they are crowned the winners. Because I have to believe Nani's knee, Anissa's ankle, like something is going to break, no pun intended, that's going to cause both of those teams to not be able to win it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's the real kicker for me is it's Nani's knee. Because how much is that going to bother her? Because if it did happen in that second day, how much is it going to bother her now, like 2 days later? Because, I mean, regardless, if you just look at the past, you'd think how Nani and Bananas have caught up, how they performed, that unless they get stumped by a bunch of puzzles, I would think that they'd be the front runners going into the final episode. But you're right, it hasn't been the story.
Absolutely. And end of the day, we have one more episode left. I would be inclined to not review the reunion. So you will have one more podcast of this season with us next week, same time. But that wraps up the coverage of episode 18 of Ride or Dies.
Yeah, so that wraps up. As Alex said, we'll be back next week. On the horizon, we do have Survivor Season 44 coming up. And if you want a chance to watch, some episodes live with not only Jonny Fairplay, the Queen, Sandra Diaz-Twine, as well as many other guests, he will be going on his tour like he does every Survivor season. You have March 1st, they will be in New York City. March 15th in Nashville, Tennessee. March 22nd in Cincinnati, Ohio, where our good friend Matt Bischoff will also be there, as well as stand-up comedian Wayne Memmott. On, I believe it's March 29th, they will be in Boston, Massachusetts. A little bit of a hiatus, and then Johnny's back full force in May, and it's May 3rd in Durham, North Carolina, May 17th in Charlottesville, Virginia, and then for the finale, they will be in Charlotte, North Carolina. Like I said, all of these, Jonny will be joined by the Queen, Sandra Diaz-Twine, as well as many other guests. They have some fire making set up. It's going to be great. If you haven't been to one of his shows and you're in the area, I highly recommend it. And then with, speaking of Survivor, we also have Australian Survivor coverage going on right now. We're through 2 weeks. Myself and Alex, we will be back later tonight with Wayne Memmott and Chrissy Zaremba from Blood vs. Water, breaking down the second week of Australian Survivor. We'll be going live at 9:15 tonight. And then, as always, the best way to support the podcast is to become a patron. You can do that at realitypatron.com. Join for a month. There's many different tiers. We promise you'll like it. If you don't, Jonny will send your money back. It's great. It gets you access to our secret Facebook group, gets you access to the Q&As, which Matt and Jonny do every week. That is their favorite podcast to do, as well as tons of other bonus stuff, as well as if you're watching Australian Survivor, you want to know where to find the links, we send those out daily so you can always stay up to date with that. And with that, that's Alex Trias. I'm Dan Montchal. We'll see you later tonight or next week.
And for more bonus content, go to realitypatron.com. That's right, become a patron now. Get additional coverage of all your favorite shows, the weekly Q&A, and you become a member of the secret, exclusive Facebook group. That's realitypatron.com.